got a lot of anger against the government, and I turn on a camera and I don't know what to talk about first. There's just so much. And I think you all recognise that too, that the world's much more complicated and much more magnificent, much more magical than anyone can perceive. And the solutions, the answers lie within the relationships between things, between people. Connecting the dots, breaking down fences, breaking down the walls between us, the divide. It seems so easy to be angry at the world, at the system, at the government, at bureaucrats and civil servants, people in uniform. So easy to be angry at the history and the past, angry at nations, angry at governments, angry at ideologies, and never actually finding a man or a woman to hold directly responsible for the whole situation. We're all such small parts that there's neither somebody who can have the power to change everything, nor somebody who can create such chaos. It's got to be a thing that's done by all of us together, this chaos. It's created by us all. And so as much as I don't like government and politics and the system and the way things are, and the way everything revolves around money and paper and law, and yet those in higher places in life, those with more money or better connections to the legal system, civil servants themselves, can seem to get away with a lot of things, to get a lot of freedoms that most citizens can't enjoy. So the system is unequal within itself. But what can you do? My hands feel tied, I feel too small, and there's always the question, if enough people wake up, or if the majority wake up, or if there's a critical mass. But it's always an if everybody. And so the frustration builds, my own anger builds, my rage begins to cloud my reasoning. I start to see everything with an evil eye, rather than just to try and see it unbiased, to try and see it neutrally and say, okay, what does this all mean? Why am I being tricked? Why am I tricking myself? What caused me to trick myself? Be very easy to make signposts and protest in the streets to a government, but then what should the government do? What is the government? It's a bunch of people following paper orders. Whether they have the heart or the time or the clarity to deal with the problems better than those who have spent a lot of time doing nothing but worrying. Those maybe have got more insight. Maybe some of us, we see more. So that rage in my own world, that rage had to be turned to something productive. And for me, it was just to look at language, to look at words, to look at legislation, to look at laws, look at statutes and acts, and why we need to obey these things. What makes a law apply to me when I get no benefit or privilege of a system imposing those laws? And these are very deep questions, mutual questions. We can't just individually say, I have the individual rights to do everything, so leave me alone. It doesn't work that simple. We have to coexist. But all the same, there's a great injustice being done within the system. Big difference in the way money is divided, and wealth, and property. And from my own observation, I put most of it down to the language, the misunderstanding in language, the misuse of language, and therefore the misuse of authority and power. The language itself, it's a realm of communication. It's a dream world, really. If you imagine when we're asleep and we start to dream, and you in a scene, in a dream, running, and your feet are sticking to the ground and you can't run and you're not getting anywhere, and the faster you run, the further away you get. That's the kind of the effects of a dream. So in a dream you have like a kind of a messed up reality that doesn't always make sense. Now if you become lucid within that dream, you're still dreaming, but you know you're dreaming, so now you have a certain level of control for a moment. You can maybe even make steps to wake yourself up or change the dream. Now in reality, when we're awake, we lose that lucidity. We take everything for granted, and physics plays its part, so we know that gravity won't just change like in a dream. If we walk or run, we'll move forwards, like in a physical reality. But when you observe communication, words, symbols, language, pictures, that realm of communication is like a dream. You know, you can say something to somebody and they'll hear something completely different. And so you can try to move the world with words, and the world will resist in the most strangest, dreamlike ways. So to approach language as a dream world makes a lot of sense. To understand that somehow the language goes deeper into the mind than we realise. It's a device that it's not a natural, directly natural device. You know, there's lots of different languages, and each nation learns a language, and there's a lot more to what that language is doing to us than we realise. And so to understand that language, and that's what's happening around the world, different cultures, different languages communicating with each other, especially over the English language, which is a very interesting language itself that should reveal a lot of the answers. Just that the English language, in its decryption, should reveal the nature of the holistic realm. What do I mean by that? No, in our lives we have an idea of our lives, what we like, what we want, our pursuits, our memories, our history. This whole realm is obviously in our imaginations. Like the waters of an ocean. An ocean that we so often drown in, you know. But anyway, I'll leave it there. I can't remember where I was going with this. Dream world. Learning the language, looking at dictionaries and Bibles and legislation and other documents that are very prevalent in our society. This, you know, this what we perceive as maybe a battle against good and evil, to turn things right, to make a better government out of the government, to make better schools, to make better hospitals, to make better workplaces and better entertainment, a fairer justice system. These are the things that lie in the foreground. To somehow gain power, to be able to communicate with those who have the power. or authority or whatever it is. It's very easy to discuss and debate and argue things amongst ourselves, but there are people who master the art of law and language and reason. Judges and lawyers and politicians, I don't know, but you know, we need to be able to communicate our ideas to those people so that they understand what's happening in this world, because I think those people in authority and power, it's anyway a false kind of power. It's our power that we've just let slip, you know. But there's the task at hand is very complicated, and I don't think that those in positions of authority at this moment are quite aware of some of the things, and I think that's why we need a better understanding of politics and legislation before we just, you know, call it all just corrupt or whatever. To understand why politics has become the way it's become, why legislation was necessary, why law, why it's all necessary. Anyway, I'm just babbling on now. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Cheerio.